Good morning, evening, afternoon, everybody. This is Carrie Getz with another edition of this podcast, Careers for Women, Trades, and Vets in Tech and Data Centers. Today, we have a good friend of mine, Celina, who is a CEO of her own company, and we're going to talk a little bit about her journey and what she does. So, Celina, introduce yourself. Tell everybody what you do.
Well, thank you, Carrie. I'm excited to be your guest today. You've been a mentor for me personally, and as such, an influential and inspiring leader in the data center market. I am really honored to be on your podcast. I do
I
like
didn't pay her
the
to say that, people. I promise you, I did not.
I do like to say I'm the CEO. It's a fun play on words for the data center industry because there's not a lot of female CEOs in this industry specifically. But I own Brogav Solutions, and we are a reseller of data center products with some installation services.
Very good. Let's talk a little bit about that journey because I think a lot of people start in this industry and they start doing other things. And clearly, you've got to have some ducks in a row to start your own company, right? And we know
Would
not
think
enough
so.
venture capital money. Yeah,
Questionable.
right. What ducks? Oh, there's ones running everywhere. Those ducks. Yeah. But I do think that it's difficult for a lot of women, and not enough venture capital money goes to women owned businesses, not enough actually capital money period goes to women owned businesses. Certainly there are some benefits for becoming a certified women owned business. Talk a little bit about let's start with how you decided to start your own gig, because I think that's a big leap, right? In and of itself, just that jumping off point. Talk a little bit about that, and then we'll get into some of the other questions.
Yeah, I don't think it's what people think. So it's kind of interesting. It was last year in 2022. I actually got laid off where I was currently working. And I took a month off with my kids and my family and went to Florida. And actually, I called you, Carrie. So
Yeah.
all Carrie gets for advice. Because we were supposed to meet up in Clearwater, I remember. And that didn't end up happening. But we had talked a little bit, and I took some time to figure out what I wanted to do next. And I had applied for a couple different jobs, but I think it was perfect timing. So it was just a lot of lead time issues, supply chain issues, and I was really good at sourcing. I had always worked for manufacturers. I knew those manufacturers well and their competition, and I was good at giving customers options for products. And so ultimately, I ended up deciding to start Brogav Solutions to help customers solve their lead time and supply chain issues.
That's really good. And perfect timing too. So I guess tip number one is take advantage of whatever situation you can find, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to be successful, any good company solves some kind of a need, I think. Even some of the social media companies, the need was just to be able to reach out and touch other people. And of course, they've clearly grown, but supply chain was a big issue through the virus and still is in a lot of cases.
For sure.
Talk about some of that process. How do you figure out who your supplier is going to be? What are those conversations like? How do you decide what products you're going to bring on board? I understand, you guys have some of your own products now, which clearly is a little bit different direction. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we just really try to solve our customers' needs, right? And it's nice being a smaller company. It makes us nimble, agile, easy to move. So we really listen to our customers and figure out what their needs are. So right away, I thought we'd only be selling new products, but then it only took 3 to 4 months to have customers saying, you know what? All of our power products, like the big PDUs, the UPSs, they have 52-week plus lead times, and we can't wait that long. Like, we could make more money now if we could turn our customers up. So could you get us refurbished products to help us out meanwhile? And even 3 months prior to that, I never thought I'd be selling refurbished products. But because we're nimble and able to turn quickly, we were like, okay, yeah, like, let us figure it out for you. We will help you and solve those needs for you. So that's really how we've grown so quickly, right? Because it has taken off pretty quickly. It's completely 100% word of mouth, like referral based still, and it's solving those customer needs. So I think it helps having relationships in the industry already, of course. So I've actually been around the data center market or telecom market for 14 years. So it's a lot of industry relationships that I've had that I can turn to people, ask questions, ask for advice, ask for different referrals, and that all helps to be able to help the customers.
Yeah, and I've told people, and I say this over and over, certainly in my experience, you're nothing without your network. Those are the people
Oh
that are
my
going
gosh.
to make or break your success. They're going to help you. They're going to bring your name up when you're not in the room, all of those things. And those relationships are super, super important in the industry. What would you say if you had to pick the most difficult relationship that you've had to deal with, and how did you deal with that coming up through the ranks, or even now?
Yeah. Wow. This is maybe not what you're looking for, but I'd say anything to do with taxes.
Oh,
That's
there
like
you
my
go.
nemesis. I did not realize I have to file taxes in every state I sell to if they're not tax exempt. So figuring out that relationship or, how to manage that has been a headache. But I think more what you're looking for is, it's probably with vendors. So it's hard being a startup company because the big brand names that some of our customers want, they have established relationships and they have a process for becoming a vendor with them, and it's not easy. So even if you do have relationships, it's not that they're going to say yes. So a lot of times you have to have a project of significant size or different things, right? So we don't always get the vendor relationships that we want. And it's just a constant kind of work in progress to continuously build them. And also, we're vendor neutral. So we're always doing what's best for our customer, and we're not just promoting one or two brands for a specific product set. And so sometimes they don't like that either, right? If they're going to sign you on as a vendor, they want you to just promote their product and not necessarily competition, different things like that. So it's a balance to manage all of those relationships and still do what's best for our customers.
I've done a ton of procurement consulting over the years, and of course, obviously running your own departments, you have a consulting budget, or I mean a procurement budget. And I will say that I tell everybody, if you're in any kind of sales, get to know the procurement people, because they're
Oh,
the ones
yeah.
that are going to help you through all those hurdles. But vendor management, especially with big companies, there's a lot of companies that will never be considered because they're not in their vendor portfolio, and companies don't want to add another vendor. And so I think that makes it difficult when you're trying to deal with some of the big names, right? Because they already have that fixed platform. And I think it's important to figure out when to say no, and maybe tell everybody, kind of, since you own the business and clearly you're trying to grow, your first instinct is to say yes to everything. But what are some diplomatic ways, or how have you been able to handle the no equation? We would love to do that for you, but hey, we can't.
Right. Yeah, we can't do everything, that's for sure. So, knowing our true value add and where our strengths lie, that's what we're focusing on. So, if people ask us to do something that truly we don't have any experience in, and we're not familiar enough with, if we're not comfortable with it, we're not going to do it, right? We don't even, because it's also, we have name brand awareness and name brand recognition we're trying to build. And a lot of it, it started with my name too. And it's like your reputation's on the line and you don't want to tarnish that. So if we're not comfortable with it, we do say no. If it's not something that we feel like is one of our strengths, we'll say no to our customers and just point them in the right direction because we still want to help them. But, we can't win them all, and that's totally fine. We just want to really excel in the ones that we do win.
And I think being able to stay out of that sphere of influence in a lot of cases makes a difference. So I will say this: companies that have quotas with big companies, or that have that exclusive relationship, it comes with quotas. So they have to push that
Yep.
solution to make their quota, or they're not going to continue to get leads from that company. And I think there's a lot of end users that don't realize what those dynamics are and how that works from a procurement standpoint. How do you work with your customers to help them understand, like, if we can't get a solution from company X because we're not big enough, we're going to tell you no, here's somebody else you can go to. But those are tough conversations. How do customers relate to you? Do you do that whole education of sphere of influence and that kind of stuff with your folks?
We do every single time. We're always trying to do that because that's your value add, right? We don't want to just push paper. So there's a lot of like negative reputations with distributors out there, right? And we didn't want to fit into that of like, we're just pushing paper. We don't understand the product. We don't really, have stock of the product, different things like that. So our value add is we understand these products, and when a customer comes to us with a need, we really want to have a relationship with them and be able to ask questions. And that's, it always helps in sales too, right? You're asking more about, well, what are you plugging that into, or why are you doing it that way, or what are your biggest needs? And through those conversations is how you really provide more of a solution sale then, and explain the benefits of particular products and giving them those different options. And that's our value add, right? Because we're not just saying, oh, you want a jumper? Here's your jumper. What are you plugging your jumpers into? And have you thought about this? Or have you ever heard of this brand? Here's some other ways that customers are doing it that we're hearing of. And that's your value add too, right? Because we're a resource of who are some newer players out there maybe you've never heard of that are doing things in a different, innovative way. Maybe you should look at this. Have you heard of this? And just being a resource for our customers is a good value add in providing those different options. And then I think it comes down to customer service too. So, we're living in a world today where customer service, everyone says it's taken a hit in all the different areas, in all the different markets, but even in the data center industry, right? If you can call someone and they understand the products and they're very responsive and you're getting quotes within hours instead of days, that's another value add too. We're trying to be extremely responsive to our customers.
Yeah. And that's really important too. I think because if you have somebody that's a true business partner, and I tell people this as well, even in this practice, if you have somebody that's a true business partner, they will bring those solutions to light. And most people that are in their jobs that are using somebody to help bring solutions to light do that because they're already working way the heck more than 40 hours and they don't have time to sift through everything and sort through the solutions. And that does become a huge value add as long as you have somebody that's open-minded. But we all know there's also people in the industry, they're like, I am only going to use brand X
Yeah.
because, pick a reason. We've always done that. And I had another customer, his value he thought in his organization was he always played the 5 whys. Why are we buying this solution? Because we always have. That's not good enough. Why? And do that 5 times. And if at the end you still get to that solution, it's okay.
You know what? So me and Tiffany on my team, we were in a meeting about 2 weeks ago, and we were called graciously aggressive. And I was like, you know what? I really, really like that. I'm going to keep that one.
That needs to
I've
be a
been
t-shirt.
I was like, I've been called aggressive a lot in my life. But when I'm training new hires too, especially in sales, you do have to repeat yourself multiple times. It's just like even learning names sometimes, right? They say, well, if you hear it 3 times, then you remember it. But it's funny because as I'm training in new sales members too, they're like, well, don't they know that we already offer that? We've already told them that. And it's like, well, we offer a lot of products. And when you're a reseller, there's just such a breadth of products that we can offer that people forget, or you got to mention it again, or they get focused on one area. So we just are very graciously aggressive and,
I love that.
going back to those conversations over and over.
Yeah, you're gonna have to put that on a t-shirt, and I'll take a large. The
Okay.
well, and I do think that's difficult, right, for a lot of women because there's a fine line between being graciously aggressive and being pushy, or and to be fair, not everybody likes everybody, and that's just kind of life. That's the way we are as human beings. So you can't really sort that bit out, but you can definitely tell when you've got end users that are going to be more receptive than others for some of that. And I've even been in meetings, especially in a pre-sales propeller head kind of role, where if you challenge somebody's thinking, there are people that get really pissed off when you do that.
Right.
So
Luckily, it's a busy industry though, so I know that we can't win them all, right? But there's a lot of people out there, and we just keep trying to grow and help our customers with their lead time issues and supply chain issues and great customer service. So it's it's been going good so far.
yeah, I years ago we were doing a bid on something, and it was kind of a disastrous bid, and I told my boss pretty much flat out, if we win this, I'm not running this project because this is a hot mess. And it turned out to be legitimately a hot mess. And then he looked at me and he said, we're going to bid it because we have to. But this is one of those that we're going to wish on our very best competition because it's going to keep them very busy for a very long time.
Yeah. Well, and we're in a technology field, so it is different every day, every project. It does keep you on your toes. That's what I was always drawn to in this industry,
Same.
is it's not, just boring and the same thing every day. So, yeah, it's interesting too, like bringing on new people to this industry and just kind of explaining that, right? It's different for a lot of people, and you have to sometimes just go with those hard ones, right? And it's a lot of details and it's a lot of change and a hot mess, like you said, sometimes, right? But for me, those are the fun ones sometimes.
Yeah, it depends on the politics of I guess, who the customer is and how well they know what they're asking for. And I will say this for a lot of people that are doing the procurement from a company standpoint, if you're procuring for your company, having a good statement of need will bring you way more solutions than saying, I need this or an alternative. Because that's really when you can start bringing in the consultative approach and you can start introducing other solutions. So for instance, if we say company X needs a phone system capable of this task, this task, this task, and this task, and you challenge your vendors with that, they might bring you 5 solutions. But if you say we need this make, model, or an alternative, you're going to get a bid for that make, model, and maybe or maybe not an alternative.
Yep.
Because
Yep. And
the
that,
unwritten expectation is that that's the one you want, right? You listed that first, you listed it with a part number.
yeah, but exactly. That's why you want to pick up the phone, have a conversation. And that's, it's not always the easiest to do, right? There's definitely people out there that just don't have time to answer the phone. They don't want to answer the phone. But if you can get them on the phone and ask those questions like, are you open to alternatives? What's most important to you? It's more of a consultative sales approach, but that's what we like because we're trying to be a full solution, like a one-stop shop. We always say we're the easy button, like the Staples button. So we actually had those made. They have my voice on them.
Oh, that's great,
I don't know how
actually.
much I love that, but true story. So it's, going back to, talking about your book too and bringing new people into this industry, especially women. So Brogav specifically is trying to bring more women into this industry from outside of the industry. But it's something to talk about because that training cycle and bringing new people in, it's difficult. And like, how long would you say it would take someone to learn this industry or get into a new, maybe business development or sales role in this industry?
Well, I guess that depends on what your past experience and exposure is, but I think this industry is not really as difficult as we try to make it sometimes, which is why I tried to keep that book under 200 pages so somebody could digest it in a weekend. I think once you know kind of how the pieces and parts and smarts work together and what builds that ecosystem, then you can dive as far into any of those subjects as you want. But,
Yeah.
we do have an image problem. People don't know what this industry is. They know, I mean, people are starting to learn cloud, right? Because you connect your phone to a cloud and you store your photos in the cloud. But people don't realize the cloud is a data center. And we
Yep.
do have an image problem for sure. And
Yeah. I
go
was
ahead.
just going to say, I say, as I bring in new people, usually it's about a year to be pretty comfortable. But our industry, every industry is a little, well, not necessarily industry, but career path in the data center industry is a little different. When we're a reseller of a lot of products, that's a lot of products and learning to figure out those and the different brands. And, there's all the crazy acronyms in this industry or
Uh,
like mergers of companies. So, like, what company is it? It goes by 3 different names because it's been acquired 3 times in the last 10 years. Like, that happens all the time. But
yeah, yeah.
um, we are looking for those critical thinkers and people that can, think outside the box and be comfortable with constantly changing technology. And they like that, right? People that thrive in that environment, I think they do really well.
I do too. And I will say this, there's the depth and breadth of jobs across this industry are so massive. To your point, Celina, learning all the part numbers and the nuances and those things, that can certainly take a good solid year for people to feel comfortable in those conversations. And I think just building that expertise really is helpful. It shows your employees that you're taking an interest in what they do, you're investing in their career. all of those things are really important. And I think it leads to long-term employees too, for sure, because you're making that investment, right? You're investing in them, so they'll invest in you and stay with you.
Yeah. So everyone, when they start too, they get a copy of your book,
Oh,
honestly.
thanks.
So it's very digestible, and they'll use that for the different support that they can get in the back. I liked that. And I like your book because I feel like I always tell them to jump around. If a part of it speaks to you this week, like read that, but you don't have to read it in order. So that's nice. But then also the great thing is there is a ton of online training for products within our industry that's free. So I'm always telling them, go to, if you're going to sell so-and-so's product today, go to their YouTube channel. Like usually you can see videos of them showing products at trade shows, quick learning videos on their products. And then our vendors, they love to teach more people to sell their products, right? So usually anytime you want to tour their facility, they're happy to do that. Um, and they'll do free 1 hour training, like webinars too, whenever you want. So very supportive to help you learn more about all of their products too, and tons of resources out there.
Yeah, and I think once people have sort of a roadmap, like for instance, I want to check out servers, you can go and find tons and tons of videos on servers, what makes one better than the other. There is a lot of education. I think the hard part for a lot of people in this industry is finding where to let that compass land to go forward in that direction, right? Because you
Yeah.
can spin that sucker all day long
Oh
and you
yeah.
can drive yourself crazy trying to get anywhere. But if you can, to your point, even if it's just for this week, like you brought up that the customer had already been told that. Well, it probably wasn't in their frame of reference. You didn't have to remember it because you weren't dealing with it that day. But 2 weeks later, now you're dealing with it. And oh man, who did I hear that from?
Yeah.
It happens. Let's switch gears just a tiny bit and talk a little bit about being a women-owned enterprise. What I know there's certainly it's changed from the way that it used to be, and there's a formal review process and all that. Talk a little bit about what that process was like and help people understand if they want to start a women-owned business, where the jumping off points are, and give them some pointers.
Yeah, so WeBank is the national certification. It's WBENC. So Women Business Entity National Council. That's the main one, which is a national certification to prove that you're woman owned. But I'm not going to lie, I mean, it's pretty convoluted and it's a tedious process. I think it took me 4 months to get that certification, and they want everything but your firstborn kid. So it's a lot, but once you get through that, you just renew it annually, and it's pretty easy. And it puts you, of course, into this bucket where you're getting notifications of jobs that they require a women-owned business. So that helps, right? It's giving you some leads. And then we also went and applied through the state of Minnesota where we're headquartered, and that put us on a couple other certification lists. So there's one that's truly just called CERT, and a couple like outside plant groupings that they have here locally. So when you're a women-owned business, you also are a disadvantaged business. We also qualify as a small business. So quite a few different certifications that we've collected over the last year. And then if you want, you can apply in each state specifically for jobs, or that national one kind of helps for most things. So it definitely helps with any like government related jobs to have that, right? It's going to give you a couple additional leads. I mean, honestly, I can say though, today we're 14 months into having that, and I have never received a job just because of that. I think some people do think that, but we haven't. But it is getting us noticed in more areas. And what I see a lot of is companies are starting to really track their diverse spend and talk about it more, right? So it's getting noticed more, but unless it's a government company, I haven't seen that it's a true requirement yet. So even bigger data center companies, they're talking about it and they're tracking it, and it's starting to become a requirement. So we're just on the cusp of it, I think, where they'll really start requiring more diverse spend.
I think that's probably true. I think there's a lot of things that companies are tracking now, for better or worse, regardless of why they're tracking it. But and of course, there's some that don't and won't. But I do think that companies are starting to pay much more attention to the number of women in their workforce, the number of women they hire, And certainly through their supply chains, companies are starting to track sustainability and social governance and those kind of things, which is where I think that'll probably come into play too. Um,
Yeah.
let's, by the way, while I'm thinking about it, everybody needs to go check out Celina's CEO video. She did win
Oh,
our DC Day in the Life contest.
yeah.
So, yes. So go check that out. Tell them where
That's
they
a
can
fun
see it.
video.
Tell them where they can see it.
Oh, it's on our LinkedIn page.
Perfect.
So I'll have to repost it to the top though. It's probably like stuck down in the middle somewhere.
Oh, yeah. Pin it up to the top. So as you guys are listening to this, you can go check it out. It's really cute. And certainly put a lot of thought into it. So hats off to your marketing person for sure.
Jessa, I was going to say too, with our new hire, so we have 3 women that we have hired in the last year at Brogav Solutions. Jessa is our director of communications and marketing. She helped put that video together. And then Tiffany, she came to us with a background in the Department of Defense and working military as a civilian. And then Anita was a restaurant manager. So they all have very diverse backgrounds, but are brand new to the data center industry. It would be fun to have them on a podcast to talk about like their transferable skills and how the transition has been for them.
Oh, for sure. We'll have to make that happen. I think every voice is important. And certainly people skip around in these podcasts too. And it's part of your frame of reference for that day or for a different day, right? You never know.
Yep.
So, Celina, I want to thank you so much for being part of this podcast. I absolutely appreciate what you're doing. For anybody that wants to get in contact with Celina, her contact information, of course, will be in the podcast info as well as a link to Brogav, which is her company. Check them out, see what they can do for you. Celina, thanks again. For the rest of you listening, we hope you listen in on another edition of our podcast.
Thanks so much, Carrie.